Hi, my name's Helen Sanderson and I lead wellbeing teams. And I've been asked to talk for a few minutes about why compassion is essential in the workplace and what we're doing to try and introduce compassion into the way we recruit new teams. So first of all, why is it so important? Well, the teams that I'm working with, wellbeing teams, support people in communities, often older people or people with disabilities, and we expect the staff who are supporting them to be treating them with compassion, to be supporting them with respect and dignity. So it kind of feels self-evident to me that if we're expecting that from the people that are going to be supporting older people, that we'd be doing the same thing with each other in the way that we support and lead our teams. And because wellbeing teams are self-managed teams and therefore relationships within the team are even more important, it makes it feel even more critical to me that we embed compassion into the heart of everything that we do. So wellbeing teams have got 6 values, and the first value is compassion. So we've been trying to design and deliver value-based recruitment where our values are really at the forefront of how we're working and how we're recruiting people. And what I've been particularly looking at is what that means in relation to compassion. So if you look at the process from advert right through to getting the letter with an offer, this is some of the things that we've been doing to try and make it feel like a more human and more compassionate process. So starting with the information that goes out in the adverts, we use a role description to describe the role and talk about our values right at the front of that, and obviously compassion being the first one. And rather than what's typically called a person specification here, we use a format called a one-page profile and ask the question, could this be you? So we say, here are the sort of characteristics of the people that we're looking for, could this be you? And these are the kind of things that be important to the people that we'd be looking for, and could this be you? And this is how we'll be providing support to enable people to do their role. So very much describing the kind of person that we're looking for. We really intentionally don't ask for qualifications and don't ask for experience, because we believe that it's the person's values and their character and how they show up is the most important thing, and looking for a can-do attitude and a big heart. And the skills, we can teach those. So we're really very much looking for values and attitudes from the offset. Because of that, we don't ask people to send in CVs, and we don't ask people to fill in application forms at the beginning. So our adverts talk about our values, but we don't just have paper adverts, we have 2 other ways of advertising for new colleagues. One is an animate, and we have a couple of minutes animate that talks about what the role is, and again shares our values and talks about looking for people with compassion. And there's a film that I've done which is a bit like this, that invites people to come and work in our team, and again talks about our values and compassion being part of that too. So in the written material that we send out, in the places that we advertise, and through films and through animates, we're asking for values and talking about values right from the beginning, and compassion is part of that. And as I said, we don't ask people to send in CVs or fill in application forms. The first thing we ask people to do is to arrange a call with one of the recruitment team. So we start off and all the information we've got about the person is their name and their contact details. They book a call in with us, and somebody in my team has a 20-minute conversation with them. And the purpose of the conversation is to learn about the person, to make sure they've really understood what the role is about, and to correct any misinformation, or to make sure they're really, really clear about that. And also to give them an opportunity to ask us any questions. And what we're really doing is the first way of us getting to know somebody is through conversation, and not by reading about people on paperwork. So we get to meet people and to hear from their perspective about what matters to them. And people who come across well on the phone and can have an engaging conversation with us, we then ask them to go through to the next stage, which is completing application forms and doing some pre-work, and then coming to join us in a recruitment workshop. So if they get through that stage, they then are sent an application pack. And what's a little bit different is that we have to collect some information for employment law reasons here in the UK. But we also send them one-page profiles of the people who are going to be in the recruitment team. And the one-page profiles include information about what people like and admire about the person, what matters to them, and what good support looks like for them. So typically the power balance of going for an interview is you know nothing about the people who are interviewing you. They hold all the power and they're the people asking you all the questions. And we're trying to do something very directly that makes that feel very, very different for people. So they'll see my one-page profile and the one-page profiles of other people who will be at the recruitment workshop. That also includes what we call co-production partners, but other people who are going to be the recipients of the care that the team will be providing. And I have a co-production partner called Helen, who is a carer of somebody who is receiving care at home. And she joins me as an equal partner in the recruitment team. So you'll also see Helen's one-page profile too. We also ask people to prepare their one-page profile to bring to the interview process. So again, not their CV, but to tell us what people like and admire about them, to tell us what matters to them as a person, and to tell us how they need to be supported to bring their best selves to the workplace. And we send them information and links to videos to make that as easy as possible. So then the next stage is, instead of an interview, we have a group process that lasts for a few hours. We put a great deal of attention into setting up the room to create an environment that says that you matter. So we'll have bunting, we'll have flowers, we'll have biscuits, we'll have tea and coffee, we'll have posters up as well. So right as people come in, we're sending a signal this is really, really quite different. We know that one of the areas of suffering, something that makes people really anxious about interviews, are both the formality of the expectation to perform, and also often not knowing when you're going to find out whether you've been successful or not. So when people come to the reception desk, the welcome desk, and Helen, our co-production partner, will be there, and another member of the team, they're welcomed, they're asked to do a name badge. We collect the information that they've brought with them as well, and we ask them for a time that they're going to be available the next day for us to have a call with them to give them feedback and tell them the outcome of the recruitment process. So trying to make that as easy as possible for people, so they're not waiting around all weekend wondering if somebody's going to get in touch, that we agree a time or a time slot where that's going to happen. So the recruitment workshop is a series of different exercises, because the other thing is most people know how to talk about compassion well, but what we want to do is to see what that looks like in action. And we have 3 specific ways of exploring that. So we do other things around team building, but the ones to do with compassion are, we have a set of values cards, and I'll go through those in a minute. We've been thinking really hard about how can you find out whether somebody can provide compassionate touch to people. Because in this role, you'll be supporting people to get up in the morning and supporting them to go to bed. So we've got to have a sense that people can do that in a respectful and compassionate way. And the way that we're doing that at the moment is by getting people in pairs and doing hand massage. So for most people, that'd be an unfamiliar skill. So we give them a set of really clear instructions with photos. We give them lovely towels and massage oil. We ask people to pair up and spend 5 minutes massaging the person's hand and then swapping over. So we get to see how people interact together and share compassionate touch. So that's one way. So the values cards, the massage, and then the third way is part of the role is having conversations with older people about what matters to them and what good support looks like for them. So we set up scenarios with people like Helen, our co-production partner, or with other people of the team, and get people to ask the questions that we would actually use in our work, and to see if they can have the conversations where they're gently inquiring and finding out what matters to people, including what bad days look like, and including what people experience when they're experiencing stress, and how we can support them. So can people have compassionate conversations? And we put that together in practice. Now the values cards that we're looking at here are based around the 4 areas of noticing, interpreting, feeling and acting on suffering. And here are some examples that Jane and her colleagues helped me with. So one of them is, can you share an example of how you supported someone who's upset and suffering at work? Imagine that you found out that another team member had lost a family in a car accident, and what would you do to respond to this tragedy? When you deeply disagree with somebody in the team, how does that make you feel, and how do you respond? If you're working in a team and you notice that a team member has made a big mistake, What's your first impulse, and how would you handle the situation with other team members? And you've been expecting information from a colleague and the deadline was yesterday. How do you respond? And finally, when you meet an older person who we're about to support for the first time, how can you approach learning about what's not working for them or what they might find upsetting? So some questions that relate to compassion. And then the next part of this is we'll make decisions together about who we think will be most suitable for the roles. And then one of the team will have the conversation with them at the appointed time, and then the next day they get a letter from me, a personal letter from me, inviting them to join the team and sharing some of the things that we appreciated about them from how we saw them perform and be in the recruitment workshop, and then we go on to our preparing for the induction process. So in practice, those questions were very, very illuminating about who we felt could operate and share and be compassionate in the workplace. And I'm sure everybody can develop a higher sense of compassion or a greater ability to have empathy and to be compassionate with people. But we wanted to start with people that were already working in that way, that we could support each other to develop in that area too. One of the people who was part of the interview group really gave us some concerns about his answers to those questions. When we were asked what you do if you notice somebody was suffering, his attitude was kind of, well, you know, most people would be over that by lunchtime. And he gave some other examples that just really gave us some concerns about his ability to bond with the team and to demonstrate compassion. So that, along with other exercises in the day, really gave us, I think, quite a good insight about who was able to work in a compassionate way and show compassion, and for whom that might be more difficult and therefore might not make them such a great fit with our team. The other thing that I noticed was the question about what happens when a tragedy strikes and what do you do? That people were broadly at a loss, really. Some people said things, well, I'm not sure whether I'd get in touch and whether that would be what the person would wanted, but I definitely want to make sure they got flowers or a card. And it reminds me of how it's easy to think that responding to people in a crisis with compassion is intuitive, but often it's not. And one of the books that I found really helpful is a book that says there's no good card for this, what to do or say when life is scary, awful and unfair to the people that you love. And this is a fabulously practical book about what you can do and when to get in touch and different ways of showing empathy and concern. So the fact that through using those cards I recognised that lots of people were struggling with that has made me think about how we can be more compassionate as a team and as a work environment, and really help each other to think through, well, what would we do? A bit like scenario planning. Imagine this has happened in our team. What would we do? How would we pull together our resources? How would we get in touch with the person? How would we figure out what they needed? So it helped me think about areas that we can grow and develop too in our aspirations to be a compassionate team and a compassionate workplace.